It's Monday, June 8th. This is the news on Pbcj. I'm Simone Absalom. A total of 405 patients have recovered from COVID-19. The country's recovery rate now stands at 67.7%. Here's a breakdown of the latest update from the National Surveillance Unit in the Ministry of Health and Wellness. The National Surveillance Unit says 2 new samples have tested positive for COVID-19, bringing the country's total confirmed cases to 598. The 2 new cases are females with addresses of residents in St. Catherine. One, a 26-year-old from the workplace cluster in St. Catherine, and the other, a 35-year-old imported case who recently returned from New York under Jamaica's controlled re-entry program. Of the 598, there are now 183 active cases currently under observation, with 2 critically ill cases and 1 moderately ill case. The Jamaica Teachers Association will be meeting with the Ministry of Education this week as schools open to admit CSEC and CAPE students. Starting today, June 8, secondary schools will be temporarily reopened to facilitate final preparation for the sitting of the Caribbean Secondary Education Certificate, CSEC, and Caribbean Advanced Proficiency Examination, CAPE, scheduled to get underway on July 13, 2020. The CSEC and CAPE refresher program for students will come to an end in July. Minister with Oversight for Education, Youth and Information, Carl Samuda, gave details at a digital press conference at the Office of the Prime Minister recently.
On June 26th, we will announce the students who have been placed in schools, which would normally come through the PEP. On July the 3rd, the CXC refresher program that we have put in place will end. On July the 13th, the CXC exams will start. That will include CAPE and the CXC from the 27th, as we had announced earlier. It has been brought forward through a process of collaboration with our colleagues in the Caribbean and the leadership of the Overseas Examination Commission. And it was felt that our desire to have these exams out of the way, certainly for Jamaica before independence, we arrived at a date of July the 13th. On July the 31st, CAPE will end, only CAPE. And by August the 4th, the CXC will end. September 7th, all classes will start in the new school year for those students who were not involved.
President of the Jamaica Teachers Association, JTA, Owen Speed, says association members are working to implement safety measures against the novel coronavirus. He says the process will be supported by ongoing talks with the Education Ministry. Students with disabilities will receive tablets to help them access classes online. 1,000 tablets have been donated to the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information and the Ministry of Labour and Social Security. Digicel Foundation handed over the tablets over the weekend. CEO Charmaine Daniels says the tablets all feature the text-to-speech and captions on-screen features, which they hope will assist blind and deaf students. She says the donation is part of the Foundation's 4-pronged approach to combat COVID-19 by sanitizing, advocating, feeding and enabling, called Operation Safe Mode. The government will be funding the construction of a state-of-the-art prison out of the public purse. The news comes nearly 5 years after Britain's Cameron administration offered to part finance a new penal facility in Jamaica. Here are the details.
The conversation of the island's penal facilities came to the fore last week with the news of Noel Chambers' death. Chambers, who was 81 years old, died while in custody at the Tower Street Adult Correctional Center in Kingston. He had been incarcerated for 40 years without being tried or convicted for an offense. Prime Minister Andrew Holness addressed the issue at a virtual press conference on Friday.
This tragedy is undoubtedly ranked amongst the most dreadful inheritances of a penal and judicial system that are in urgent need of reform. The Minister of National Security has commissioned a comprehensive audit into the circumstances leading up to Mr. Chambers' passing. A key component of this audit will be a detailed multi-agency examination of the loopholes that may exist across the systems in order to ensure that we remedy any likelihood of this situation repeating itself.
At the same press conference, Mr. Holness was asked about the offer by the British 5 years ago to build a prison, to which he responded.
So, Prime Minister, how do you measure your effort to improve the prison conditions since you rejected that offer by the British to help in building a new facility?
Well, just to be clear, I was not the government at the time when the offer was rejected, just to be clear.
Mr. Holness went further in a statement on June 7. He explained that in 2015, the Guardian newspaper in the United Kingdom reported that the then People's National Party administration signed a memorandum of understanding with the government of the UK to build a prison in Jamaica as part of a wider prisoner transfer program. Given the overwhelming public opposition to the offer formalized in the MOU, the PNP apparently backed away from the deal, saying they did not sign an MOU. Mr. Holness says as a member of the then opposition, he was not in support of the venture. He furthered, quote, if a new offer were made to build a prison and accept prisoner exchanges, given the historical context of the relationship with the UK, I would still maintain my position that Jamaica would be better served building better schools, and that would certainly obviate the need to build more prisons. The Prime Minister says the government is committed to improving the conditions of our prisons and as our economy recovers from the effects of COVID-19. For the news on Pbcj, I'm Gabrielle Thompson.
Minister of Health and Wellness, Dr. Christopher Tufton, on Friday officially opened the $329 million program for the reduction of maternal and child mortality, PROMAC, High Dependency Unit building at the St. Anne's Bay Hospital. The new facility, made possible through funding by the European Union, will improve the quality of care available for scores of critically ill neonates and high-risk pregnant women in St. Anne. Jamaica could lose up to $145 billion this year if the tourism sector is not reopened. That from Portfolio Minister Edmund Bartlett as he addressed a Jamaica House press conference last Friday. Carl Francis reports.
Our economy stands to lose more than $145 billion for this year if tourism is not reopened. $35 billion for the public sector and $107 billion for the industry itself. And if we do the math on a daily basis, we're talking about $400 million loss per day.
The minister said that 350,000 workers in the sector will continue to be directly impacted by the tourism downturn. As the country begins to reopen its borders, the minister addressed concerns over the safety of workers given the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. He outlined a four-step approach to ensure just that. Mr. Bartlett said the anti-COVID measures were developed in conjunction with the Health and Wellness Ministry. The first is the establishment of a resilient corridor.
It is based on these facts and more that we have decided to reopen our borders to tourism. However, we are committed to reopening in a safe and controlled manner to protect our most treasured asset, our people. We have developed several tools to protect our workers. I will quickly share just 4 big areas of the many. The first line of protection we have put in place is a resilience corridor for tourism travel. Tourist movement in this area will be controlled, and they will not be allowed to leave the corridor. You will notice that the corridor essentially moves from Negril along the main road areas, east, northeast, along that highway all the way to Port Antonio, so that all the properties on the windward side, or the beach side, so to speak, would be embraced in that corridor.
The other measures include operational protocols, training assessment, monitoring, and rapid response. The upcoming months will be critical as the industry walks the tightrope of regaining lost revenues while ensuring safety. For the news on PBCJ, I'm Carol Francis.
The government is working to implement robust legislation and regulatory frameworks to adequately protect personal data of Jamaicans. That information from Government Senator Robert Morgan. Senator Morgan was making his contribution to the debate on the Data Protection Act 2020 during the sitting of the Senate on Friday. Marlon Samuels tells us more.
Government Senator Robert Morgan says safeguarding personal data is significant in an increasingly digital society. The Act seeks to do that.
Digital innovations are reshaping the society and the world we live in and impact our economic, culture, communities, and our individual lives. The fact is, Mr. President, as we move towards a digital society, the impacts do not only occur at the centers of digital innovation, which is probably America, Europe, and so forth, but are also concentrated in small island developing states, who in many cases have been rendered vulnerable as their digital innovation has not kept pace with that of innovation centers like Silicon Valley and so on. It means that societies like Jamaica must innovate in order to survive and protect its citizens. We must create robust legislation and regulatory frameworks to ensure that our citizens are protected in a digital society. And we must do all we can as well to benefit from a digital society, but at the same time protect ourselves from its challenges.
As Jamaicans increase the use of the internet via their mobile devices, Senator Morgan says it has become more crucial to protect citizens from cyber attacks and other data-related infringements.
There are over 1 million smartphone users in Jamaica right now. And if you look around you right now, you see most of us in here have a smartphone. It means that not only are Jamaicans engaging with the internet, but they're also engaging with the mobile internet. What that means is that instead of a static desktop where you go and provide it information and it gives you information, your smartphone is now constantly with you, collecting data about your everyday life. 64% of Jamaicans, Mr. President, are on Facebook. That's about above 1.5 million people. About 40% are on Instagram, and a little below 10% are on Twitter. Mr. President, Facebook has your name, your date of birth, your address, in many cases your phone number, pictures, and in some cases family members' information, and other information triangulated based on the friends you have. Let's for a minute contemplate if Facebook got hacked and the private data of 1.5 million Jamaicans ended up with some Russian hacker who's selling credit cards. Think about the impact that will have on the economy.
Opposition Senator Sophia Fraser-Binns threw her support behind the legislation.
It is a game-changing piece of legislation. There is no doubt that personal information, Minister, you said a new gold, I want to go a step further and say it's a new platinum. It really is. I mean, people pay big money for personal information, and this piece of legislation is really putting in place, once and for all, a strategic, well thought out framework on how we're going to treat with people's personal information. And it comes at a critical time. It comes at a critical time where cyber crime and hacking is at an all-time high. Just recently, for example, I know of a financial institution right here in Jamaica that stated publicly that it was a victim of hacking. I also know, but I cannot speak with authority about one, very recently in March. I also know that there's another financial institution that shared that there has been some inadvertent sharing of clients or customers' information with other customers. And though they notified customers, they took steps to correct it. The fact is that with this bill, it sets out how you treat with that now. So it is not left to the individual in a subjective way to treat with it. But there is now a law in place that tells you how to treat with it.
Ms. Fraser-Binns also called for a public education campaign to explain how the new law will impact them.
Let us not drop the ball after this becomes law. What is required is an ongoing public education. And I'm saying public education, not public relations, because there's a difference.
Fundamental difference.
There is a difference. We have to undertake a public education so that every jackman understands what this means for them. Because it is not going to be business as usual, and there are real penalties.
The debate on the bill was suspended until the next sitting. According to leader of government business in the Senate, Kamina Johnson-Smith, this will allow those who wish to share their perspectives and the opportunity to do so. For the news on PBCJ, I'm Marlon Samuels.
Minister of National Security Dr. Chang says the government is committed to providing the Jamaica Constabulary Force with the necessary technological resources to boost crime fighting. Speaking during a tour of police stations in Area 4 on June 6, he said the telecommunications center has been totally refurbished and is now providing good quality communications within the force. Dr. Chang says the aim is to modernize the police force, and since 2017, the government has upgraded 100 police stations. He says 25 are now being repaired and plans are being done for land acquisition for the divisional and area headquarters in St. Catherine this year. However, that construction could be delayed due to the impact of the novel coronavirus. Petrojam says it has successfully transitioned to low-sulfur heavy fuel oil. General Manager of Petrojam, Winston Watson, says the refinery was in preparation mode for close to 2 years, so there are very few glitches during the transition. On January 1, 2020, the International Maritime Organization introduced regulations to lower the sulfur cap on marine fuels from 3% to 0.5%. This is designed to significantly curb pollution produced by ships worldwide. Gabriel Thompson now takes us through the business report.
In Thursday's trading session, the JSE combined index advanced by 295 points to close at under 400,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 83 stocks, of which 33 advanced, 36 declined, and 14 traded firm. The junior market index advanced by 34 points to close at under 3,000 units. Stocks advanced for AMG Packaging and Paper, Blue Power Group, and Cargo Handlers Limited. Stocks declined for 138 Student Living Jamaica, Barita Investments Limited, and Caribbean Assurance Brokers Limited. Trading firm were 138 Student Living Jamaica, 1834 Investments, and Access Financial Services. Wigton Wind Farm Limited ordinary shares was the volume leader with 3.4 million units, followed by Trans Jamaican Highway Limited with 2.6 million units and Carreras Limited with over 1 million units. Now for the foreign exchange. The US dollar on Thursday, June 4, ended trading at $141.97. The Canadian dollar sold for an average $105.78. The pound sterling traded for $179.59, and the euro ended trading at $161.31. Oil prices rose on Friday after OPEC decided to move up discussions on whether to extend record production cuts to Saturday, indicating that some laggard countries may have agreed to align themselves with the deal. Brent crude futures were up 27 cents to settle at $40.26 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude futures rose 17 cents to $37.58 a barrel. That's it for the business report on PBCJ. I'm Gabrielle Thompson.
In regional news, 137 Guyanese citizens that had been stranded in Miami were repatriated over the weekend. InfoHub's Shaquille Bourne was at the Petrojam airport and filed this report.
Behind me is an Eastern Airlines flight that has landed at the Petrojam International Airport with approximately 137 Guyanese that were stranded in Miami. As citizens make their way onto the tarmac, they will be sanitized by staff from the Ministry of Public Health, after which they will enter the airport for screening.
Welcoming our countrymen and women was Minister of Public Health, the Honorable Valda Lawrence, who praised CJIA's staff for following the health protocols necessary for fighting COVID-19. The minister said Saturday's repatriation flight was possible through the continuous work of all ministries, agencies, and stakeholders.
The fact that today we can be able to open the airport for Guyanese who are in various countries. Today, specifically, we looked at the USA to begin to come home. It's because we would have been able to put in place several elements needed to ensure that we can be able to cushion any effects that will spill out from persons traveling from high-risk country to Guyana.
With a mandatory 7-day quarantine in effect, the minister said the Surveillance Department of the Public Health Ministry will remain in contact with the citizens to ensure compliance with health guidelines. The minister further noted the Health Emergency Operations Department also stands ready to address any possible cases should one of the returned citizens later test positive for COVID-19. Many of the passengers that arrived were in high spirits to be back home.
This is the best country in the world. There's no place like home. It is so nice to be back home and to see nice, welcoming faces.
That was 84-year-old John Quayle, who was stranded for 3 months and 6 days in Miami. He said he plans to abide by the health guidelines set out by the NCTF.
You got to make sure you adhere to the regulations and do what is necessary and keep safe.
A number of other persons, while relishing in the joyous moment to be in Guyana, pledged to be compliant with the health guidelines.
It feels great to be back, no place like home. First of all, I'll stay at home for the 7 days that I have to, as mandated by this. And then I will be working from home and I will not be going out much. And if I really have to go out for necessities, I'm going to make sure I wear my mask.
It feels really good to be back home. For 7 days at home, nobody with me and gentle Jesus alone.
According to the Director General of the Guyana Civil Aviation Authority, Lieutenant Colonel Egbert Field, more repatriation flights are expected during the second week of June.
Reporting from the Petrojam International Airport with videographer Akeem Thomas, Shaquille Bourne for InfoHub.
Over in St. Lucia, Prime Minister Alan Chastanet has been facing criticisms over recent comments he made about colonialism. But Culture Minister Fortuna Belrose has come out in defense of Mr. Chastanet. Gina Phillip of HTS News Force reports.
Minister with responsibility for culture, Senator Fortuna Belrose, has defended Prime Minister Alan Chastanet's colonization comments, stating that it was misinterpreted. Some have slammed Chastanet for his colonization has a conscience but economics does not statement, given the dark history of subjugation and exploitation attached to the system. Belrose says persons should move past what she calls the slavery mentality.
Slavery has been abolished since 1834, but a lot of us are still caught, with the mental slavery. I grew up in an environment where some of my family members are half white, and some of them are black and some of them are totally black, you know. And so for me, I've been able to work with all sectors and all types of persons in the society, recognizing that we are human beings and we are free to ventilate and express our feelings about how we feel about things. And so for me, coming from an environment where I have mixed relatives, you know, I always see individuals and what they bring to the table with insofar as their heart is concerned. So it's unfortunate that people misinterpret that and put everything in the context of slavery, but I think we are human beings who should move and lift ourselves beyond that, you know, and engage each other in a respectful way, you know, recognizing that each of us were brought in here, you know, for the greater good, you know, of society.
Acclaimed guitarist Ronald Bohingson reportedly renounced his goodwill ambassadorship over the controversial remarks, though an official reason has not been given for relinquishing the post. Belrose revealed that he shared his concerns, but she is unaware that he gave up his goodwill ambassadorship. The senator says that while she has qualms about the reported resignation, the decision lies with the famed musician.
Based on the rules of engagement with respect to the ambassadorial program, one has to submit the resignation to the Governor General. So I'm not aware of that at all. Yeah. Okay. I know that he's written to me, and of course he's expressed his desire to move on. But for me, I did receive that with reservations and trepidations, given the fact that he's such an icon in our society. And so it's really his decision. You know, that's something you can't force on somebody. And so it's his decision, but I think there's a medium, a system for him to be able to channel that. And I'm sure, being who he is, he would do what is right.
Senator Belrose explained colonialism versus economics from her perspective.
I think my Prime Minister was attempting to allude to, if I understand what he was saying, is that there were people there. You know, there were people there. People, human beings, who had a heart, who had a conscience, you understand, who were driving this. You know, and in the case of the economics, it's not about people, but it's about those people who are leading the economies, you know, of the country and trying to ensure that we benefit in the way that we should.
The minister claims that while both concepts are different, the common factor is what she calls the driving force.
Colonialism, as we know it, historically, was an environment where people were colonized by persons who forced them to believe what they wanted, you understand, to believe. There was a way of, they had to conform. Economics is about your belly. It's about being able to provide for your family and enabling a society to be able to flourish in a way that it can allow people in the society to benefit from it. And so, to my mind, they're two different things. But in terms of the fact that there is a driving force, I think in both institutions, colonization, there is a driving force in there. In economics, there is a driver as well. From that standpoint, perhaps, you know, yes, the feelings and the vibes are different.
Opposition leader Philip J. Pierre has also criticized the Prime Minister, stating that economics does have a conscience as it deals with improving the standard of living of citizens. He has since called on Chastanet to disavow the statements and apologize to St. Lucians. Gina Filippi, HTS News Force.
In sports, cricketers are being urged to be particularly disciplined, given that the gradual easing of the novel coronavirus lockdown measures has opened up the door for scaled-down training sessions. Cricket coach Coley says the biggest challenge will be keeping up with social distancing. Coley, who in recent days has been overseeing one-on-one training sessions with Jamaican players at Sabina Park, says it will have to become a part of daily behavioral habits, as even coaches will have to bear this in mind and other COVID-19 protocols when planning exercises. Currently, it is the off-season for regional cricket, and the Caribbean's governing body has provided guidance for how territories should forge ahead with their respective pre-season preparations. The local cricket association has been forced to postpone or cancel tournaments and preparation activities. And that's the news on PBCJ. Thank you so much for watching.